This pharmacist saved more than 19 patients from dying. Now, it depends on how you see it. She saved at least 19 persons, but ended up killing 5 patients. It all depends on how you see. So watch to the end, listen to the end. So I feel it's not her fault for the deaths of the 5 patients, but you can be the judge of that. It depends on how you see it at the end of the story. Now, her name is Adaobi. Ada for short, as pharmacist Ada. Now, it started on a Tuesday morning by around 11. 3 patients had collapsed in the hospital. The nurses were panicking. First, it was this elderly man that was treated for hypertension. Then this middle-aged woman who collapsed on the bed. They both complained of fast heartbeats before they collapsed. Now, then the third patient, Mr. Okoro, same symptoms, same collapse before they died. Now, the nurses had just distributed a particular brand of hypertension, antihypertensive drugs to them. So they just felt it has to be the drug. In the midst of the chaos, they shouted, "Where is the pharmacist?" So the pharmacist was close to the nursing station. She froze. She was shocked. So without wasting much time, pharmacist Ada rushed to the ward. So in the middle of the commotion, she knelt down by the elderly man who had just collapsed, picked up the pill from her, and then she tried to observe what was in the packet or in the sachet. And then she froze. Her heart skipped when she saw it. Something was not right. So the packaging was dull. That's when she looked at it. The print of the label was slightly faded. She flipped around to see the expiry date. It was expiring on the 1st of January 2024. And this was April 2025, just last month here. And it was really too late. Many patients had taken their morning doses. And only God knew how many had taken the expired drug that day. Not just that day, but all of those outpatients who come in and go out. All right. So Ada ran back to the pharmacy and began to pulling out all the brands of that particular antihypertensive drug. So she was doing that, her hands were trembling. She was checking all the expiring date that she was doing that, and they all expired in January 2024. So the batch had just been delivered 2 days ago. That was the luck she had. And from the invoice, they had supplied just 10 packs to the unit, and only 1 pack was left. So 9 packs had gone out. So how did the expired drugs even get past inspection? So she grabbed her phone and quickly called the chief pharmacist who was off duty that day. After explaining to him, he was quiet. So he instructed her to quarantine all the supply that she had. She keep it. She should not allow anybody to see it. And then she check the records for all the patients who they are dispensed to, because there's a ledger. They usually enter all the patients, their name and their prescription. And so she can trace that and get their contacts to be able to call them. So by now the hospital was in chaos. Nurses were running from room to room trying to get the drugs from the patients who are taking them. Some patients were angry, imagine. So others were scared. Now they were angry. They have the right to be angry. So by the evening, the hospital had confirmed 2 more death cases due to that drug. Ada and the intern that were on duty checked the patient record and began calling the numbers that were in the hospital record. Some didn't pick, some were already home. If you had traveled, what do you expect? They even found one woman at a naming ceremony in Ekboma, and she had already taken 2 doses of her drug. So they just begged her not to take it again and the rest. By 7 a.m. the next morning, the chief pharmacist Danladi, the CMD, accompanied with 2 members of the hospital board, and pharmacist Ada were at the hospital drugstore, that is where the drug was supplied to the unit. Because everything was computerized, they checked who received the supply and the subsequent supplier. So the supplier was one Onet Limited, and they called the contact on the invoice. It did not exist, but something struck. So the chief pharmacist in the drugstore remembered that particular supplier. The list of the approved supplies were gotten from the office of the CMD. So one of the hospital executives had slipped in several drug suppliers for the hospital. You know what they do? They want their persons to supply this particular drug and the rest. Before the news had got it to NAFDAC and they had made a visit to the hospital, it was a big news for a hospital to sell expired. So NAFDAC officials arrived that same day, took samples, sealed up part of the warehouse, because they didn't just want to close down the hospital. They want to allow only emergency drugs to be supplied, while every other kinds of drug will not be supplied out of the drugstore. Also, they arrested the chief pharmacist in charge of bookstore. They arrested the chief pharmacist in the unit where pharmacist Ada worked. They also took the doctor who had recommended the supplier. Since the supplier's contact wasn't going, those are the ones they arrested. Before they arrived, pharmacist Ada had reached out to all the patients who had received the drug from her unit, but 5 persons remained unreachable. Their numbers were switched off and some did not pick. So far, 5 dead, 5 numbers unreachable, 19 patients got their drug retrieved and were informed, including the woman who was in the naming ceremony. So NAFDAC blamed pharmacist Ada for not double checking before dispensing. But was it really her fault? So at the last, everyone, who do you think is to blame? Is it the person in the CMD's office who actually recommended our supplier? Or is it the pharmacist in the bookstore? Or is it the chief pharmacist in Ada's office? Or is it pharmacist Ada? Or is it the nurses who dispense to the patient who didn't check? So who is to blame? Let me know in the comment section who you think is to blame from this case. So see you in my next video. Bye for now.